what's happening? Hey, I got to tell you, don't mind my background. I'm actually out at the PFL. Going to be calling the fights later tonight. I want to tell you, you guys know my buddy Bardia. So Bardia Helmley has been handicapping and picking fights. He thought he was about 60% right, which was pretty good. So then they publicly traced him for over 3 years. Turns out my boy is a little more than 70% right. So he's got an organization, PremierFightPicks.com. Go to PremierFightPicks.com. 1 week. You get a 1 week membership. You will get all of Bardia's picks. Now, it's important you do it today because he's got a full analysis as well as his predictions for Woodley versus Paul, but also Barboza taking on Giga. So you can get double action this weekend. And I got to tell you, Bardia is 3 for 3 this month. If he gets Paul and he gets the Giga fight right, he will have a grand slam for the month, and you can get in on it. $49.99. You get all of his picks plus analysis, and it's very in-depth. The guy is a very smart guy. You want to follow him on Instagram? Go to @PremierFightPicks. You want to get in on this on Twitter? Go to @PFPHandicapping. You want to go make some money with him? PremierFightPicks.com. And don't be afraid to let Bardia know that old Chael sent you.
My official prediction for Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul. Guys, I'm going T-Wood. I would love to tell you why. And I'm not in the same camp as so many are, where the Pauls are just YouTubers and these guys are jokes and these aren't tough guys. I am far from that. And I think you guys are too. I think you are too. But you weren't always. You weren't always. We learned a lot when Logan got in there with Floyd. And we learned a lot when Jake got in there with Ben. And it wasn't just the outcome. It wasn't that they both just won. Talk Jake specifically, and look what he was up against to go in there with Ben Askren. Ben was 17-2 in MMA, had 2 world championships in 2 different weight classes, had made an Olympic team, and had dealt with pressure. Jake had done none of those things. Jake had fought nobody that did any of those things. So what's it like when you told everybody how tough you are, and now it's fight night, and you're in the back? Then you get into the back, and the program and the production that you're now working for are a bunch of scumbags. And you're having to see a concert play out in front of you. And you're getting a little sprinkle of sport. And you're listening to the announcers who show up drunk and or high. And all of a sudden, all the professionalism is gone. All of a sudden, I've worked hard. I've put a training camp in. I've come here for serious business. And the people that are overseeing it are anything but. As a matter of fact, that guy calling the action is stoned. I mean, what's that like? In all fairness, there's a lot to deal with, not to mention the show was way too long. And my goal here is to not insult Triller and the fact that they had a 6-hour show that should have been done in about 90 minutes. It has to do with a compliment to Jake Paul, who put up with that, who had to know when to warm up, who had to put the nerves behind him, who had to know when to walk out, had to go out there and perform. And if you're in the school that he landed a lucky punch on Ben or not, go ahead and be. He still threw it. And he was still within reach to throw it. And it still had a lot of power on it. And it still succeeded, stopping a 2-time world champion who was once an Olympian. I mean, in all fairness, Paul showed a lot, just showing up. He gets that same credit against T-Wood, and I think that Paul has many ways to win. If Paul is to go the distance with T-Wood, that's going to be a win for a lot of people's mind. If Paul is to win a round against T-Wood, that's going to be a win for a lot of people. When you start to have those pressures or lack thereof in your favor, it can be very advantageous because it's not true for T-Wood. T-Wood has to beat him. T-Wood can't win a round and lose the other 7 or any mathematical formula to that. T-Wood can't hurt Paul but not get his own hand raised at the end of the night and have some kind of a moral victory. T-Wood has to win this fight. He can lose rounds, that's true, but he needs to win. He has to win this fight, period. He's a former world champion. He is a future Hall of Famer. He has to win this fight. There is no moral victories here. So what does that do? Does that help a guy? Does that motivate him? Does that make your marching orders very clear? It does for some athletes. Does it put a pressure which ultimately creates a stress and puts a fatigue on you? It does for some athletes. I don't have the answer. I just know that when you look at Jake Paul, you need to see a tough guy. I think you're starting to, but you need to. Appropriate. He's a bigger guy. He's a taller guy. Does size and or reach matter? Not necessarily. Fight announcers love to come out and shove that down your throat and up your ass about who's taller and who's got the reach advantage, but you're not going to find very many guys in the history of fighting that had longer arms and therefore won. You're just not. Muhammad Ali He had a pretty good reach for that time in overall height. Mike Tyson never had a reach advantage or a height advantage. I mean, you start to see the difference, right? It's something that somewhere along time got put up there on what's called a full page, and everybody makes a big thing about it. I don't know that Jake Paul being bigger is overly advantageous. I don't know that him having a longer reach is overly advantageous. I think that T. Wood moves very well. We know and can see that they both have powerful hands. We know that because we've seen Jake Paul knock guys out with 16-ounce gloves, and we know that Tyron has it because we've seen him knock guys out with 4-ounce gloves. Great. Don't want to get hit with one of these guys. Now let's look at the defense. Who is better or more likely to get out of the way of the punches of their opponent? We haven't seen Jake get out of the way of very many punches because we haven't seen very many thrown at him. We've seen T. Wood get out of the way of thousands of punches, but we've also seen some hurt him. So it's one of these things where we have some evidence, we have some data, but how do we analyze and how do we interpret that data? I believe that boxing's a real sport. No matter how much it keeps getting presented to me that it's not. I think it's a sweet science. I think it's a skill. No matter if I saw Conor go with the best guy to have ever done it, Conor who had never done it, or I saw Logan Paul beat the best guy who had ever done it. That's tough. That's tough evidence to look in the face and then still maintain that boxing is a sport. I think it is. I think fighting is a hard thing to learn. I know for sure that conditioning is real. I know that grit is real. I know toughness is real. I know dealing with pressures and closing out a night in a main event spot are real. And these are all things that I have to give in T. Wood's favor. I think T. Wood moves really well. And there also seems to be something within human or viewer psychology. When we haven't seen a guy do it, we therefore deduce that he can't do it very well. That is a myth. That is a nomenclature is false and has been proven false, but we still see it. How is Jake going to do in the 8th round? We've never seen him in it. I bet he can't hold up. That doesn't mean he can't. But I'm guilty of that as well when I give you an analysis. T. Wood can go all night. I've seen him. T. Wood can fight championship rounds. I've seen him. So how will Jake do when he's tired and when he's hurt? These are things we haven't seen because of the level of success that Jake has had. He's been too damn dominant. You want to hold that against him? Is that fair? No, it's not fair. Do I hold it against him? Yes. T. Wood gets the win.